My son bought his best friend a $60,000 sports car, and then he told me he couldn't afford my $25 diabetes medication. Let me say that again. He purchased a brand new, fully loaded, custom-built muscle car for his childhood buddy. And then, just 10 days later, he sat in my garage, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Dad, I'm really sorry, but money is just too tight right now." That was the moment my world collapsed. Not with a dramatic crash, not with screaming or tears, with a quiet, almost indifferent whisper that erased every memory of every graveyard shift I had worked, every meal I had skipped, every possession I had sold to buy him baseball gloves, to pay for his college exams, to make sure he never felt like trash. I'm nobody special. I spent 31 years of my life driving a garbage truck for the city. 4 a.m. wake-ups, rotten food, dead animals, needles in the trash, the stench that stays in your clothes, no matter how many times you wash them. It wasn't respected. It wasn't glamorous. But it was honest work. It was a paycheck I stretched until it was practically see-through, just so I could give my son, Marcus, a fighting chance at a better life. His mother walked out on us when he was 6 years old. She left a note on the kitchen table and a hole in our family that never healed. Said she couldn't handle the poverty, couldn't handle the smell, couldn't handle me. I was 22 years old, a kid myself, suddenly a single father to a little boy who didn't understand why mommy wasn't coming back. I raised him. I fed him. I protected him from bullets. I taught him to throw a baseball. I taught him to shave. I taught him to be a man when I was still figuring out how to be one myself. I worked 16-hour days, came home reeking of garbage, ate cold dinner alone after putting him to bed, ignored the herniated discs in my back, ignored the ringing in my ears from the grinding engine, ignored the loneliness that ate at me like acid. I told myself, you can fall apart when he's grown. Right now, you have a little boy to raise. And I did raise him. I paid for his football equipment, his school trips, his SAT prep. I didn't have money for a college fund. Not really. But I saved every spare penny. When he graduated from high school, I handed him a crumpled envelope with $4,000 inside. Worn bills I had hoarded from overtime and side jobs. I told him, "This is your head start, son. Don't blow it. Build something real." He went to college. He met a woman named Vanessa. Beautiful, sharp, rich. Her family had money. Real money. The kind that buys penthouses and political connections. I remember the first time I visited their apartment. I drove my 20-year-old pickup truck with the duct-tape tailgate and the rusted fender, and parked it next to a Tesla and a Mercedes. I was so proud of Marcus. He had climbed out of the gutter we were born in. He was wearing tailored suits, talking about mergers and acquisitions. I could barely understand him. It felt like we were speaking different languages. His girlfriend's father, Harrison, was always polite. That rehearsed kind of politeness. He smiled at me, but I saw what he was thinking. I saw it in his eyes when he looked at my calloused hands and my sun-damaged face. This is his father. Look where Marcus came from. I used to tell myself I was being paranoid, insecure. I told myself Marcus had just grown up. He was a man now with a life of his own. He had a girlfriend and eventually a son named Caleb, my grandson, the pride of my existence. I would watch Caleb whenever they allowed, which wasn't as often as I would have liked, but I cherished every moment. I would take him to the arcade, buy him video games with money I genuinely couldn't afford, and listen to his laughter. That laughter made all those years of thankless labor feel completely worthwhile, but slowly, I began to notice the cracks. The phone calls from Marcus became shorter. The visits grew more sporadic. He used to call me on Thursday nights just to talk about old memories or ask my advice about life. Now, he would only call if he needed something or if he was driving somewhere and had nothing better to do. He stopped asking about my health. He stopped asking about my life. It was always about him, his promotions, his new watch, his business trips, his social circle. I tried to be happy for him. I really did. But there was a part of me that felt like I was being abandoned, like the father who sacrificed everything to give him a launching pad had now become an awkward relic of his rough beginnings. I was the garage, the rusted truck, the cheap cologne, and he was the high-rise, the luxury vehicles, the designer suits. Then things got worse. Vanessa's father, Harrison, took a special interest in Marcus's career. He was retired, but he had influence. He had a network. He helped Marcus secure a position at a top-tier law firm. A partnership track I barely understood. Marcus owed a great deal to Harrison, and he started to act like it. He started calling Harrison Dad. I don't know why that cut me as deeply as it did, but it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I'd been dad for 32 years. I'd earned that title with blood and sacrifice. And suddenly this man, who had never changed a diaper, never worked a double shift, never known what it was like to have nothing, was getting the respect I had starved for. But I never said a word. I bit my tongue. I smiled at the cocktail parties where I felt like a squatter in a palace. I held my grandson and tried to feel grateful. About 18 months ago, I started feeling this persistent tingling in my feet. It wasn't painful exactly, but it was unnerving. My doctor sat me down and told me I had developed type 2 diabetes. My blood sugar was dangerously high. I wasn't going to die tomorrow, but if I didn't manage it, I would be facing serious complications within a few years. He prescribed me a medication that I had to inject daily. It was the only thing that kept my sugar level stable. I applied for assistance through the state program. I was on a fixed pension now. My retirement benefits barely covered my rent and groceries, but the application process was a nightmare. Paperwork kept getting rejected. They told me to be patient, so while I was waiting for approval, I had to pay out of pocket. Let me tell you about the cost. The medication cost $25 for a month's supply. That's it, less than $1 a day. It was the single barrier between me and a hospital bed, between me and losing my feet, between me and an early grave. I could manage the rent. I could manage eating beans and toast for dinner, but I couldn't skip that medication. I told myself that as long as I had that injection, I would be okay. I would survive to see Caleb graduate high school, maybe even college. I'd managed to get by for several months. I budgeted like a fanatic. I turned off the hot water heater during the day just to save a few bucks on my utility bill. I walked everywhere instead of driving to conserve gas. I was making it. I was just barely making it. Then the bad week came. My pension deposit was late. Some bureaucratic glitch. I had paid my rent, but I was left with $29 to my name. I had a few days of medication left, but I knew I was going to have to face the hard truth. I was going to have to choose between eating for the next 2 weeks or buying my medicine. I decided to call Marcus. I hadn't asked him for a single dollar since he graduated college. I had never asked for help. I was too proud, too stubborn. But this was my life we were talking about. I dialed his number with a lump in my throat. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Dad, what's going on?" I tried to sound casual. "Hey, son, how are you? How's Caleb?" "We're good. Listen, I'm kind of in the middle of something. I've got a client dinner in 20 minutes. What's up?" The rush in his voice made me freeze. I didn't want to be a burden. I never wanted to be a burden. I took a deep breath. "I hate to ask you this, son, but I'm in a bit of a bind. My pension check was delayed, and I need to refill my diabetes medication. It's not expensive. It's only $25. Could you spot me until my check comes through? I promise I'll pay you back next week." There was a pause. A long, agonizing pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end. Then he sighed. It was a heavy sigh, like I was asking him for a kidney. "Dad," he said slowly, "I'm really sorry, but things are just so tight right now. You know, with the Penthouse mortgage and the car payments and Caleb's private school, we just don't have any extra cash at the moment." I almost dropped the phone. Extra cash. $25. I couldn't process it. My mind went blank. I was standing in my cramped, cluttered garage apartment, holding a burner phone with a cracked screen, and I was staring at a stack of overdue bills. "I'm not asking for $1,000, son," I said, my voice cracking. "It's $25 for the medicine that keeps me alive." Dad, I get it. I really do. But we're stretched thin. Vanessa and I had a financial review, and we're cutting back on everything for the next few months. I have to think about my family. My family. He said my family. He was talking about his wife and his son. And in that moment, I understood that I wasn't in that category anymore. I was an outsider. Okay, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I understand. I'm sorry to bother you. It's okay, Dad. I'll call you next week. That was it. The click of the phone hitting his receiver echoed in my garage like a gunshot. I just stood there for a long time staring at the concrete wall. I didn't cry. I think I was too shocked to cry. I just felt hollow. I went to the bathroom and looked at my insulin pen. I had 3 doses left. 3 shots for the next week. I held one up and looked at the small clear liquid. It was the only thing keeping me alive, and it was worth less than what my son spent on a single bottle of wine at the exclusive restaurant he bragged about. That evening, I did the only thing I could think of. I started rationing my food intake to keep my sugar levels low. I ate only half a meal each day, hoping my body would produce less glucose. The doctor had warned me never to do that it could send me into a dangerous hypoglycemic state. But what other choice did I have? 5 days later, I was scrolling through Instagram on my outdated smartphone. I don't even know why I still looked at social media. It was just a parade of people posting vacation photos and expensive dinners. But then I saw it. A photograph of a sleek, powerful sports car, jet black with a red leather interior and custom rims. It was parked in front of a mansion I didn't recognize. The caption read, "A little surprise for the best friend anyone could ask for. He's been through so much and deserved an upgrade. Thank you, Marcus. You're the brother I never had." I stared at that photo for an hour. I zoomed in on the interior, the engine, the price tag someone had left on the dashboard, $60,000. He had spent $60,000 on a gift for his best friend, and he couldn't afford $25 for my life-saving medicine. My heart, already struggling, started hammering in my chest. It wasn't just anger. It was a profound, soul-crushing sense of betrayal. I was the one who had worked double shifts so he could eat. I was the one who went without so he could have. And I had been reduced to something worth less than the custom rims on that car. I didn't call him. I didn't text him. I didn't post anything passive-aggressive on Facebook. I just sat there in the dark, feeling the weight of my loneliness crushing my chest. The next day, I went to the pharmacy with my last $5 and begged the pharmacist. He was a young guy with glasses and kind eyes. He knew me, had watched me struggle 4 months. He took pity on me and gave me 2 free samples. "Don't worry about it, Frank," he said. "You're a good man. Good man." My son didn't think so. My son had just spent $60,000 on a gift for a man who had never even held his hand when he was scared. Then came the Thursday. It was a rainy, miserable afternoon, the kind of day that makes you feel twice as old. I was sitting in my worn-out recliner, feeling sorry for myself, when I heard a knock on the door. I didn't get many visitors. Figured it was the landlord coming to complain about the leaky faucet I hadn't had the money to fix. I shuffled over to the door and opened it. Standing on my small, rickety porch was Harrison. His wife was waiting in the car. He was soaking wet from the rain. He didn't have an umbrella. He was holding a manila envelope in his hands. I was stunned. I hadn't spoken to Harrison in months. He had certainly never come to my garage apartment before. He was dressed in an expensive polo shirt, but the rain had ruined it. He looked uncomfortable, like he was standing in a sewer. "Frank," he said, his voice formal and a little shaky. "Can I come in?" I nodded, stepping aside. My garage apartment was a mess. There were stacks of newspapers everywhere, and it was musty. I cleared a pile of laundry off the small dining table. "Sorry for the mess. Have a seat." He sat down, placing the envelope on the table between us. He looked around the garage. He saw the cracked concrete floor. He saw the stained carpet. He saw the medicine bottles sitting on the counter next to a stack of overdue bills. I saw his eyes linger on the insulin pen. "What's this about?" I asked, my voice guarded. He cleared his throat. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I have to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago. I braced myself. I figured he was going to tell me that Marcus had decided to cut me out of Caleb's life, that they were moving away, that I was a bad influence. Marcus and Vanessa have been having some trouble, he said. Financial trouble. The penthouse is too expensive. They have credit card debt. They borrowed money from Eleanor and me. I didn't react. I just stared at him. When Marcus bought that car for me, he continued, he did it to impress Vanessa. And to be honest, he did it to make me happy because I had been helping them so much. But I knew it was a stupid purchase. The car is too flashy. I didn't need it. I told him not to, but he insisted. He said it was a gift. He looked at me then, and for the first time I saw real emotion in his eyes. It wasn't pity. It was shame. I didn't know about the phone call, he said, his voice lowering. I didn't know you asked him for help. He told me the other day. He was bragging about it. He said, I told my old man to get lost. He's always mooching. He laughed about it. My blood ran cold. Mooching. He called me mooching. I was furious, Harrison said. I told him that was disgraceful. I couldn't believe he would treat his own father that way. The man who raised him, he paused, running a hand through his wet hair. But it wasn't until yesterday that I realized the truth. I had to take the car in for detailing. I went to the dealership to get some paperwork, and I saw the contract. He pushed the envelope towards me. Take a look. My hands were trembling. I pulled out the papers. It was a loan agreement. Marcus's signature was all over it, but the price was wrong. The car wasn't $60,000. It was $165,000. The interest rate was astronomical. Marcus had been ripped off. He had been so desperate to buy Harrison's affection that he had signed a loan that would ruin him. He was paying more than triple the value of the car over the life of the loan. He was drowning in debt, and he was trying to pretend he was rich. But Harrison didn't stop there. He pulled out another sheet of paper. That's not the worst of it, he said. When I realized what a lousy financial planner Marcus was, I decided to look into something else. This private school Caleb attends. Vanessa told me it was a gift from you. She told me that you gave them the tuition money, that you inherited a sum and gave it to them. She told me that's why they didn't have the money to help you, because you had it all along. I blinked. What? Yes, Harrison said, nodding grimly. She told me that you paid for Caleb's education, that you were sitting on an inheritance, hiding it from them. They told me that's why they couldn't assist you, because you had your own resources. I was speechless. I didn't have an inheritance. I had nothing. I had never given them a cent for Caleb's school. I had never even seen their tuition statement. But then the realization hit me like a freight train. A $60,000 freight train. They had been lying. They had been lying about me to Harrison and Eleanor to make me look like a rich miser who refused to help them, so they could justify abandoning me. I realized the truth, Harrison said. You didn't give them anything, they lied. They said your money was hidden, that you refused to help them because you were greedy. I can't believe I listened to them. He looked at me and his eyes were glistening. You know, I never liked you much, Frank. I always thought you were common, that you were holding Marcus back. But I was wrong. I've been a fool. He took my hand. He actually held my hand. Marcus is a liar. He's not the man I thought he was. And you're the man I should have been. I felt the tears welling up in my eyes, but I held them back. Then Harrison looked at the insulin pen on the counter. He pointed at it. Is that? It's $25, I said, my voice barely breaking. I don't have it. It's my diabetes medication. Harrison's face turned pale. He looked like he was going to be sick. He didn't say a word. He just stood up, walked to the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of cash. He put it in my hands. Take this, he said. Go to the pharmacy. Get your medicine. Buy groceries. Get the best care you can buy. And I'll take care of the rest. But the money wasn't what shook me. It was what he said next. That's not a gift, Frank. That's a down payment, because I'm going to need your help. I'm going to make this right. For the next hour. Harrison told me the details. He was going to the bank to transfer the car loan into his own name. He was going to take the car back to the dealership and then lose the money just to keep Marcus from drowning. But he was also going to call a lawyer. I'm going to expose him to the whole family, Harrison said. To Vanessa, to Eleanor. They need to know what kind of man she married. He's a fraud, a liar. And I'm not going to let him destroy his wife's life just to maintain his ego. He looked at me. But I need you to stand by me. We can't let him manipulate us anymore. I didn't know what to say. 4 years. Harrison had been my enemy, my rival, the man who took my son's loyalty. And now, he was the one who had come to my garage of rain to rescue me. He was the one offering me justice. The following week, Harrison and I met in secret at a diner. He showed me the bank documents. He had paid off the car loan. He had taken the loss. But he had also found out that Marcus was cheating on Vanessa with a paralegal from his firm. It was the final nail in the coffin. I'm going to confront him, Harrison said. And I want you to be there. I want you to see him tell the truth for once in his pathetic life. I agreed. I felt a fierce anger I had never known. This wasn't about the $25 anymore. It was about the years of lies, the years of humiliation, the years of me being treated like a ghost by my own flesh and blood. The day came. We met at their penthouse. Harrison had called a meeting. Vanessa was there. Eleanor was there. Marcus was there, looking nervous. He didn't expect me to be there. He smiled at me. That fake, charming smile he had perfected. Hey, Dad, he said. What are you doing here? It's just a family thing. Harrison stepped forward. No, Marcus, this is about you. He presented his evidence. He told Vanessa about the debt. He told her about the lies they had told. He told her about the affair. Vanessa didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat there frozen. She looked at Marcus. Is it true? Marcus's face went white. He tried to lie. He tried to cover it up. It's not what it looks like. Dad, you have to believe me. But I looked him in the eye and I said, no, you don't get to call me that. Not today. You had a chance. You had a chance to be my son, and you threw it away for a car. He opened his mouth to argue, but Harrison silenced him. Pack a bag, Marcus. You're out of the penthouse. Vanessa is staying here. The look on Marcus's face was one of absolute terror. He wasn't terrified of losing his wife. He wasn't terrified of losing his son. He was terrified of losing the house, the money, the status. In that moment, I saw him clearly for the first time. He wasn't a victim of circumstance. He was a victim of his own greed. He had sold his soul for a life he couldn't afford, and he had pushed me aside because I was a reminder of the reality he was trying to escape. He stormed out of the penthouse. Harrison walked over to me and put a hand on my shoulder. He'll call you, Harrison said. When he's broken, when he has nothing left, he'll come crawling back. I nodded. I know, but I won't be there. Harrison looked at me. I looked at the car keys on the table, the ones for the sports car Marcus had bought him. Do you want the car? Harrison asked me. I stared at him. I want my medicine, I said. I want my grandson to visit me on Sundays, and I want my son to learn what it means to be a man. A few weeks passed. Marcus was living in a cheap apartment. His law firm found out about the affair and the financial issues. He lost his partnership track. Vanessa divorced him, and she got full custody of Caleb. I started to see Caleb more often. Vanessa brought him to my garage apartment every weekend. The garage was still small, but now it had a new TV and the fridge was full of food. Harrison had made sure of that. He had given me a debit card and told me to call it a salary for being his new partner in crime. We didn't see it as charity. We saw it as a partnership. One evening, I was sitting on my porch when I saw a car pull up. It was Marcus. He looked terrible. He was unshaven. His clothes were wrinkled, and his eyes were hollow. Dad, he said, walking up to me. I didn't get up. I just looked at him. You were right, he said, his voice cracking. I was a fool. I lost everything. Vanessa took Caleb. Harrison hates me. I'm drowning in debt I can't pay back. What do you want, Marcus? He looked at me. I need help. I need you to forgive me. I looked at the horizon. The sunset was beautiful. The world kept turning. I thought about the days when he was a little boy sitting on my lap, telling me he wanted to be just like me when he grew up. I can't give you money, son, I said. I don't have any. But I can give you the same advice I gave you when you were a boy. Be honest, work hard, and never, ever take the people who love you for granted. He started to cry. He fell to his knees on my porch. Please, Dad, I have nothing left. I looked down at him. This man who was my son. I felt the ache in my chest, the pain of years of sacrifice, years of love, years of betrayal. I stood up. I walked into my garage apartment and I closed the door. I didn't look back. The next day, the mailman came to my door. He had a package. It was a letter from Harrison. Inside was a photograph of Harrison, Vanessa, Eleanor, and Caleb smiling on a porch. Behind them was a car, but it wasn't the expensive sports car. It was an old, beat-up sedan. A car that was paid for. And there was a note attached. Frank, I've sold the sports car. I bought this one for getting around. It does the job just fine. And here's the best part. I used some of the leftover money to set up a college fund for Caleb. Not a big one, but enough, because he needs to learn the value of $1 and the value of family. If you ever need a ride, I'm here. And if you ever want to see Caleb, just call. You're his grandfather. You always will be. I read the note 3 times. I put it in my pocket, took my medicine, and sat on my porch. Marcus came back to the garage a few more times begging. I never let him in. I listened to him cry, but I didn't open the door. It's been a year now. I've watched Caleb grow up. He's in 3rd grade. He draws me pictures. He calls me Pops. He doesn't know about the money or the lies. He just knows I'm his grandfather. And Marcus, he's still trying to put his life together. He's working 2 jobs. He's paying off his debts. He calls me on Sundays, but now it's different. He's not begging. He's just talking, just like we used to. He talks about the weather. He talks about his day. He talks about Caleb. I let him talk. I let him apologize, but I don't trust him. Not yet. I learned a lot this year. I learned that love isn't a transaction. It isn't about what you get out of it. But I also learned that you have to protect yourself. You have to let people fall so they can learn to fly. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is close the door. My son bought his best friend a $60,000 sports car. Then he told me he couldn't afford my $25 diabetes medication. But that day, he taught me the most valuable lesson of all, how much I'm actually worth. And it turned out my value was never in the money I had. It was in the door I could close and the door I could open for my grandson. The ultimate revenge wasn't making him suffer. It was finding peace in my own garage and knowing I had survived, not because of him, but despite him. And that's more than any sports car could ever buy.